Walk into any store in 2026, and two names sit at the top of the wall, lit brighter than everything around them. Samsung and Sony. Both beautiful, both premium, both promising you the last television you will ever need, and both charging you a lot of money to believe it. But here's what nobody on that sales floor will tell you. Only one of them is actually built to still look right in 10 years. The other is built to look incredible tonight, sell you tonight, and quietly let you down somewhere around year 4. And the tricky part is, it is not the one most people guess. So today we settle it. Samsung versus Sony on the only question that matters for a television you actually mean to keep. Not which looks best under the store lights tonight. Which one survives a decade in your living room? We settle this in 4 rounds. The panel, the software, the processing, and the price. 1 point each. Whoever survives 10 years best takes it. And real quick, if a straight, no-sponsor breakdown of the 2 biggest names in television is worth something to you, hit the like button right now. It genuinely pushes this to the next person about to overpay for the wrong logo. Subscribe for honest TV advice with no brand loyalty and no hype. And tell me down in the comments which one you are running right now, Samsung or Sony, and how many years you have had it. I read them all, and the pattern in your answers is genuinely useful to everyone here. Round 1, the panel, the part you are actually paying for. Here is the first thing that surprises people. On raw panel technology, these two are closer than the price gap suggests, and they often share the same fundamental parts. Samsung's best sets are Neo QLED, which is a bright mini LED backlight behind an LCD. Sony's best mini LED sets work the same way, and that shared fact carries the single most important longevity point in this entire video. A mini LED set is backlit, which means it physically cannot burn in. Whatever you leave on it, for however many years, it will never ghost a logo into the corner. Both brands give you that safety on their mini LED lines, and for a television you want to keep for a decade, that matters more than any brightness number on the box. Both also sell an OLED, and here both carry the same honest catch. Samsung's is called the S90F, Sony's is the Bravia 8. They are stunning, the best picture either brand makes, but they are organic, which means the same slow burn-in question applies to both. So on the panel, it is close to a draw. Samsung tends to run brighter, which we will come back to, and Sony tends to tune its panel a hair more accurately out of the box. But neither brand is going to hand you a panel that dies early. On pure hardware, they are both built like premium sets should be. And there is one more panel level thing worth 30 seconds because it decides how a set looks every single afternoon, not just in a dark room. Anti-glare. Samsung's newest sets have some of the best anti-reflection coatings in the entire industry, so in a bright room with windows behind you, a Samsung softens the reflections instead of throwing them back in your face. Sony handles glare well too, but Samsung is the class leader here. And if your television lives in a sunny room, that is not a small thing. It is the difference between a watchable afternoon and a mirror. Sony's counter is viewing angle and color accuracy. The picture holds up better from the end of the couch and needs less tweaking to look right. 2 real advantages, pointing at 2 different living rooms. So I am calling round 1 a tie on durability and giving the edge, barely, to Samsung for one reason. Brightness and glare. Because a brighter panel run at a comfortable level lasts longer than a dimmer panel pushed to its limit, and Samsung simply has more headroom. Plus that anti-glare wins the real bright room afternoon. Round 1. A narrow point to Samsung. Now the round that actually decides this. Round 2. The software. And this is where most people get burned, because it is invisible in the store. Here is the thing nobody checks before they buy. Your television has 2 lives. The panel, which we just covered, and the software, the smart system that runs your apps. And they do not die at the same time. You can have a perfect panel 3 years in and a smart system that has already been abandoned. Apps dropping off one by one. Menus getting slower every month, until the television still turns on, but no longer does the thing you bought it for. And I want to be honest about who this hurts most, because it is a lot of you watching right now. When that smart system starts to age, it does not fail all at once. The menus start to hesitate. The remote feels a half-second slow. An app you use every day throws up a message one morning saying it no longer supports your model. Text gets harder to read as the interface changes. And slowly, watching television starts to feel like work, on a set whose picture is still perfect. That is the whole pleasure of the thing draining out of it while the screen still looks brand new. And it is maddening because nothing is actually broken. And this is where Samsung quietly wins the whole video. Samsung has committed to 7 years of software updates on its recent televisions. 7 years. That is one of the longest commitments in the entire industry, and it is a genuine, checkable promise, not marketing. It means the set you buy today keeps getting security patches and app support for the better part of a decade. For a longevity buyer, that is enormous, because it is the exact clock that usually kills a television long before the panel gives out. Sony runs Google TV, which is a good, familiar system with a huge app library. But Google's long-term update commitment on televisions has historically been vaguer and less consistent than Samsung's flat 7-year promise. Sony sets tend to keep working well for years, and a lot of it comes down to Google rather than Sony. But if you are choosing purely on how long the SmartBrain stays supported and current, Samsung has put a bigger, clearer number on the table, and I have to give it the point. Round 2, Samsung, and it is not close. Quick question while it is fresh, because your answer changes which of these is right for you. Do you actually use your television's built-in apps, or do you run everything through a separate box, like an Apple TV or a Roku? Tell me below. If it is the box, round 2 barely matters to you, and this whole thing tilts back towards Sony. Hold that thought. Round 3, the processing. And this is Sony's home turf. Here is a truth the spec sheet will never show you. 2 televisions with identical panels can look completely different, because the processor deciding what to do with the picture is different. And Sony's processor is the reference the entire industry quietly measures itself against. It is best in the business at one specific thing that matters enormously over 10 years of ownership. Taking ordinary, imperfect content, cable television, old broadcasts, compressed streaming, the stuff most of us actually watch most of the time, and making it look clean and natural instead of smeared and artificial. Think about what that actually means on a Tuesday night. You put on the evening news, which is a compressed broadcast signal, not a pristine movie. On a lesser processor, faces look a little plastic, fast camera moves smear, and the whole thing carries a faint digital noise you stop noticing, but your eyes never quite relax around. On a Sony, that same broadcast looks clean and natural and easy to watch for hours. Same with an old show you love, or a football game where the ball is moving fast across the grass. Sony's motion handling and its upscaling are the reason the picture stays comfortable across the messy, real-world content that makes up most of what any of us actually watch. Why does that matter for longevity? Because your television does not just have to survive 10 years. It has to stay watchable for 10 years, across everything you throw at it, including the low-quality stuff. A Sony makes bad content look good, and good content looks cinematic. And it does it consistently, year after year, without the fake sharpening and cartoon colors that make a lot of sets tiring to watch over time. Samsung's processing is genuinely good, do not misunderstand me. It is one of the better ones out there. But Sony's is the one people are still praising a decade after they bought the set. That is the definition of aging gracefully. And it is exactly what a 10-year buyer is paying for. Round 3. Clearly, Sony.
And there is a quieter longevity point riding underneath the processing. So let me hand it to you plainly. Sony builds relatively few televisions and supports them for a long time, which is precisely why the Sonys people bought a decade ago are still running in living rooms today. Samsung builds an enormous number of televisions, which means parts and service actually exist everywhere when something does go wrong. Two different kinds of reassurance. Sony's is that it probably will not need fixing. Samsung's is that if it does, help is easy to find. Both are real. Neither wins the round outright, but both are why these two brands sit at the top. And that points at the boring, important question nobody asks on the sales floor. When one of these does eventually fail, what actually goes? At these tiers, on both brands, it is rarely the panel. It is the power board or the backlight. The same as any modern television. And both Samsung and Sony use serviceable parts and have the networks to fix them. That is the quiet reason these two sit above the budget brands. Not that they never fail, but that when they do, it is usually a repair and not a funeral. A no-name set that fails is landfill. A Samsung or a Sony that fails is usually a board swap in an afternoon. That is what your premium is really ensuring, and it is why both of these are safe 10-year bets in a way a cheap set never is. And one warning that applies to both brands equally, because it is how people get fooled in that store. The showroom lies. Every television on that wall is running in a torch-bright demo mode, on a looping clip chosen to hide its weaknesses, under lighting built to make screens pop. At home, in your actual room, on your actual content, every one of these sets looks different, usually calmer and a little less dazzling. So never judge either brand by the 10 minutes you spend in front of it in the store. Judge it by reviews that test it properly, and by which strengths match your actual room. The set that wins the showroom is almost never the set that wins year 8. Round 4, the price. And here is where you find out what that logo is really costing you. Let me put the real numbers on the table, and every one of these is linked below with its current price. Samsung's Bright Room Champion, the Q-N90F, sits at under $1,500. Their OLED, the S90F, lands around the same. Now Sony. Their value mini LED, the Bravia 7, runs under $1,700. Their mini LED flagship, the Bravia 9, is under $2,200. And their OLED, the Bravia 8, is around $3,000. Look at that spread. For a comparable class of television, Sony asks noticeably more, and at the flagship end, dramatically more. So the honest question is not which brand is better, it is what the Sony Premium actually buys you. And the answer is real, but specific. It buys you that best-in-class processing, and it buys you the buy once, keep forever reputation. It does not buy you more brightness. Samsung usually wins there. And it does not buy you longer software support. Samsung wins that too. To make it concrete, put the two mini LED flagships side by side. Samsung's Q-N90F and Sony's Bravia 9 are both superb, both bright, both built to last a decade. The Sony costs several $100s more, and what that money buys is the processing and the tuning, not a brighter or longer lasting panel. For a movie lover who watches a lot of imperfect content, that difference is worth every dollar. For a Bright Room family that watches a mix of everything, the Samsung does 90% of it for a lot less, and puts the difference straight back in your pocket. Same story one tier down, where Sony's Bravia 7 goes up against Samsung's cheaper sets, and one tier up in OLED, where Sony's Bravia 8 asks around $3,000 against Samsung's S90F at half that. If your budget reaches the Sony comfortably, and you value the processing above all, it is worth it. If it would be a stretch, understand that a Samsung at hundreds less is not a downgrade in reliability. It is a different set of strengths for a lot less money. Round 4. On pure value per dollar, goes to Samsung. Sony earns its price, but it does charge it. So let me tally it and then give you the verdict that actually matters, which is not the score. And if this has already saved you from overpaying for the wrong logo tonight, that is your cue to hit that like button. On rounds, it is Samsung 3, Sony 1. Samsung took the panel narrowly, took software clearly, took value clearly. Sony took processing. But here's why the score is a lie,
and why this comes down entirely to you.
If you watch a lot of ordinary content, cable, news, sports, older shows, in a normal mix, and you want the picture that will still look right and natural in 10 years without ever tiring your eyes, and your budget can reach it, buy the Sony. The processing is the thing that ages best of anything in this entire comparison, and it is the closest thing to a guaranteed decade of watchable picture that money can buy. That is the buy once set. But if you have a bright room with a lot of windows, or you want the longest software support in the business so the smart system never ages out, or you simply do not want to pay a $1,000 premium for processing you might not fully notice, buy the Samsung. It is brighter, it is supported longer, it costs less, and it is every bit as reliable on the hardware. For most normal households, in most normal rooms, the Samsung is the smarter money. And that is not a compromise, it is the honest right answer. And here is the one warning that outranks everything I just said. Neither of these brands is a safe bet if you buy their cheapest line. Both Samsung and Sony sell entry-level LCD sets that carry the famous logo, but almost none of what makes the brand worth buying. Thinner build, weaker processing, dimmer panels. Buy the bottom of either range and you are paying a premium badge for a budget television. The reliability you think you are buying lives in the mini LED and OLED tiers we talked about, not in the cheapest set with the right name on it. Buy the brand's strength, or do not buy the brand at all. So there is your answer. Sony for the processing that ages best and a budget that can reach it. Samsung for brightness, the longest support, and far better value. Both built to last if you buy the right tier. And whichever way you go, do the one thing that protects the whole decade. Buy it somewhere with a real return window and check the warranty in writing before you pay. Because even the best brand ships the occasional bad unit, and the safety net is what turns a rare failure into a free repair instead of an expensive one. So tell me before you shop, Samsung or Sony for your next television, and what is the one thing tipping you? The brightness, the price, or the picture that lasts? Drop it below and I will tell you honestly which one wins for your exact room. And next time, we go after the failure almost nobody warns you about. The one where your television still turns on perfectly, but has quietly stopped being able to do its job, because the smart system inside it died years before the screen did. The smart TV trap, and which sets actually survive it. Hit subscribe so it finds you, and I will see you then.